So I always, if I didn't like pre-pick a theme like an astrology theme, which I like to intersperse in these, and we will eventually have our first guest, and I have several people, but I think we found the person at the top of the list to ask today. But I always then like to share with you what is being reflected back to me. And it's interesting as we are just coming out of this really intense Scorpio time where all of this chaos is coming up. The whole world is going through chaos, and people are going through physical chaos. You're going through physical chaos. I'm going through all kinds of weirdness in my body. Things are just coming up. People around me, my clients, my friends, family, Nana, just like lots of stuff coming up out of the body. And it's like the body is saying, would you please just slow down? I'm trying to clear here. I'm trying to detox. But also emotional and mental chaos is coming up. And what's been reflected back at me, it's so interesting. Like I just observe and I see it literally just like kind of comes out and echoes back at me, because that's what it is. I observe it, and there's this, this is in here. This is, and at first I watch it and I see it without me, and I'm going, really? That's in there? And then it'll get repeated, but maybe in a little bit different way. Yep, this is in here. Look at it through this lens. Look at it through that lens. Look at how this person reflects it. What I'm seeing now, which shows me that I've really worked through this well, is the internal settling, the acceptance of being a single parent. Yep. And I used to tell the angry single parent story. I stopped telling the angry single parent story probably just a few years ago. And I got tired of it, as I always do. It's like what we shared last week in the podcast about the empath and that whole victim aspect. I got really tired of telling those same stories. It's my processing, which is a very verbal process. I talk about this, I talk about this, I talk about this, I talk about this. Then I get the response back. It's always through feeling, and it's like, I don't really see how that's helping me. Talk about that. So let's change that. Let's try not talking about that for a while and see what that feels like. And so I just stopped talking about being a single parent. Of course, I would see the echo of talking about it for so long, because I was a single parent for a long time. I am a single parent, but I was in the thick of it. But what's come up recently is very interesting. What's come up recently is I see there's several people. I see women that show up in my life who are pregnant. And it's interesting because it's not something I'm talking about. Like our phones are designed to pick up like what we say and then show that back at us through social media apps. But it's not something I've been speaking about. So unless the phone is designed to literally read my thoughts, which I wouldn't doubt that if it did, but literally on my YouTube channel last night, all of a sudden, women who are empowered having home water birth just showed up on my YouTube feed. That's not something I have watched in many, many years. And it shows their masculine partners really supporting them, which was something that I didn't really have. I had it with you, with your father, but I didn't have it with your siblings. And to really see that. And then this whole week, while I'm doing my system job, pregnant women with their partners fully there, fully supporting them. And it's like, and I always feel I'm so happy that she has him. That's so wonderful. I was
going to ask, what does that do for you?
It makes me feel relieved. It makes me feel like, and I was talking with a woman the other day who just found out she's pregnant. And I asked her, you have a healthy partner? And she's like, oh yes, I'm married and he's so excited. And this is their second child. And they didn't know if they could get pregnant again. And they did. And she's so happy and he's so happy and they're ready for this. And they told their oldest child. And I said to her, that is so wonderful that you have a healthy man to support you. And she said, oh yeah, he's all on board. And I said, because there's not a lot of men anymore who are like that. She goes, I know, it's so sad. And she said, I actually know many women. And I think she told me her sister and her best friend, both of them have children and had men partners who weren't interested or left. And I said, that story is too common. And it's so unfortunate. But then I said, I had the same situation. And the first thing, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you had that. I said, thank you. And I said, because we had a little while, but I was waiting. And I said, here's the beautiful positive that came out of that situation. I said, and it's clearly, I told her I'm a hypnotherapist and she was all interested in that. And I said, in my work with helping others and through my own hypnotherapy that I received myself, including all the therapy outside of hypnotherapy, being a yogi and in my practice, I've really learned that in this life and I told her, I believe in free will and that we choose some of these circumstances for ourselves to learn. And she said, oh, I truly believe that too. I said, I really see how it deepened my level of compassion and empathy. I said, I've experienced some really extreme hardship in this life, some like really tragic things that in the moment I was like, this is really tragic. And I said, but what it's done is it's deepened me on a spiritual level, and it's deepened me on a human level. So that it's almost like my emotional body has come forward more and I'm more of a human being through it. And then through that theme, the human being theme has been coming through. And I'll share that in a moment. But she looked at me and she said, you are incredibly wise. And I think it's a great blessing to the world that you're doing the work that you're doing. Because she said, you are clearly seeing the spiritual purpose of it. And she said, and that's a person that we need to be doing this hypnotherapy work that you're doing. And she's like, you teach yoga? I said, I teach yoga. And she said, wow. She said, that's incredible. And then she wanted to know if I had a website. I said, yes. I gave her my YouTube channel and she brought it up on her phone and said, she's like, I got to look at this. She said, because she's like, you're really grounded with all of that. And she said, and that just seems like, you have so much. She said, you give so much. I said, this is a life of service for me. And then she said, perhaps that it's its purpose then. You have a life of service, and so you're able to serve others, she said, as you said, with compassion and empathy. And I felt like she was there, newly pregnant, first trimester of pregnancy, in order for me to just echo that back. It almost felt like she was a plant in my hologram.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we each show each other these things. I'm sure that your presence to her was felt just the same way in a totally different experience. So I'm sure that from her perspective, she gained something from your presence to where she was like, wow, like that was exactly what I needed in that moment. It's amazing how we can do that for each other, and everyone is that in each other's lives, which is miraculous. It's when you become aware of it is when you really start to see the synchronicity of it all. And that's when we have this sort of uncanny feeling of like, oh my God, this is a divine moment. And every moment is a divine moment because we are in one divine moment. And so that's the timing to witness that, just like what you see. I see that every day. And I remember for a while, I went through a phase of ego where I contemplated solipsism, which is the concept that you are essentially the sole proprietor in a universe created entirely by you, where everything around you is simply an extension of your own singular consciousness. Now, the only way in which that really differs from like the understanding of God consciousness or oneness as we understand it is that it infers that your identity as the way that you see through your own eyes of your human experience, that is the identity of the creator. So it's identifying the ego with the creator, which is, a fine line to narcissism. And it was interesting for me to contemplate that for a while, because there really, from a philosophical perspective, you don't actually know if that's actually the case or not. Like it's really hard to tell.
It's a theory.
It's a theory unless you delve into the empathy and understanding as you're talking about, unless you really start to like take pleasure in seeing other people's experiences for being as beautiful as they are. And then there's really a depth of understanding. And then you start to see that really you are just a single cell in a vast organism. And the organism is the consciousness. It's not you, it's the organism. And so it's like, and then you see how everyone and everything is a mirror to itself and each other.
Yeah.
And then it really gives a new meaning to everything. And you're like, wow, it's like, and then it's beautiful too, because you start to see how your experience, your depth in all of your suffering is a beautiful gift to share with everyone. Everyone learns from it. You learn from their perspective and your own suffering, and just as, they learn from theirs. And it's really a beautiful mirror, the whole universe is. And, that really, once you start to get into that consciousness, when you start to get into it, I find that there's no turning back. You can't undo that, because it's really, it's just a general universal truth that I don't want to undo that. I find that it gives life so much meaning and so much beauty. And I like being able to serve universe simply through my existence, just through being as I am, because it means that I don't have to cling to those old past things as negative experiences that are served to me in a way that, say, a judge would serve a sentence to its a defendant or whatever. Rather, the whole thing, the idea of the judge and the jury, is actually just a perspective that you choose to take. And when you shed that perspective, you see that the true meaning underneath is so much deeper and more beautiful.
Absolutely. To add to what you were talking about with going from seeing the world through the lens of the ego, of the me, my, mine, really is my words to it. It's interesting because, like, after you were born, I was trying to get pregnant with Mars, and I had a progesterone imbalance, which at the time I didn't know was genetic, but it was. I thought I had done something to my body, that I could get pregnant, but I couldn't retain it for more than 4 weeks. So I had this series of multiple miscarriages when you were starting at age 2. And I began to constantly see women who were very pregnant everywhere. And coming from ego, there was a resentment. Why do I constantly see pregnant women? Why can they have a baby and I can't? And then it's the higher self coming in saying, well, wait a minute, you already have a baby. You've got a child and you had him successfully. And guess what you did not do? You didn't try for him. You were actually planning your wedding. And you were distracted, and he popped in because guess what? You like to try to control everything all the time. In fact, you were mad at yourself for getting pregnant with him because he didn't come at your plan, which was to be 1 year after your wedding. It was like higher self's joke on me. Guess what? He's coming whether you like it or not, and he's going to come when it's the higher plan and not your ego plan. And not the way you think it should be. And so it was like this little lesson for me all the time. And all right, well, I have to go into this process of surrender in order to get pregnant again. And I had to my higher self kept coming in and saying, how did you get pregnant with Colby? I was busy with other things. So get busy with other things and you'll get pregnant again. So I did, and I got pregnant again. And of course, I had the help of Chinese medicine with Dr. Zhang. Had a lot of acupuncture and a lot of Chinese herbs, but nevertheless, I got, I was already so involved with you, but it was like, put your focus on something else, something that brings you joy. And then I got pregnant with Mars. And then it was the same thing, trying to get pregnant with Kyan. And then, I did get pregnant right away, but it was a stillbirth. And there was just something that was not right with that pregnancy. And then it was like, why is this so difficult for me? It was so easy to have Colby. You're doing it again. You're becoming obsessed with this. Creation just happens. You have to just allow it to happen. How are you going to foster your children if you keep trying to pick them up and they won't allow them to walk because you want them to walk in your way? I was never that extreme, but I was extreme anyway. And so it was let go again. And I let go and I got pregnant with Kyan. And again, I used, progesterone to help just to keep the pregnancy. But it was like, this is what you do. And it was like that process of looking at all of these pregnant women and coming from ego of resentment and then coming in and saying, no, you have to focus on gratitude. I had to do the same thing when your father and I divorced, and I was immediately looking for my partner. I was looking for the man that, and at the time was into all that twin flame garbage, thinking that the twin flame was without and it wasn't a man and all of that. I had to go through that process of going into the belief system of the twin flame to come out of it and realize it's really myself. I'm the twin flame. It's an energy. It's not a person. The concept of without. I was constantly being shown everything's within. All these ideas are within. All this feeling is within. Everything you're looking for is you. You're looking for you. And every single time you see a happy, successful couple, have joy for them. And it was that process of really coming into, yes, committing to the self, which if we're speaking astrologically is so my Aries stellium in the 8th house. It's a very North Node in Aries thing. It is.
Yes, 100%.
It's very North Node in Aries in the 8th house. Going through death in order to rebirth the self, the death of the lower self in order to come into the true self. And finally coming into that. And so as we are ending the Scorpio season, I'm like, I feel like I've finally arrived. I've arrived in this settling of, I love myself. I love being single. I love being who I am. And if I have a partner, I would only have a healthy partner. Like you already know, I've had a lot of opportunities to have partnership after divorce, and none of them were healthy. And at first, it was almost like, here's a taste, you're going to repeat, and then he was removed. And then there were actually a couple of, potential real partners, and it was me. I finally said with both of them, I know, my inner child really wants this, but he's just not healthy. This is not the guy. And I stepped out of it. And it was a healthy decision to make. And now it's the decision of I've partnered myself for life. Again, a North Node in Aries decision. I'm partnering myself, and it wouldn't matter if I had a healthy partner in this life or not. I am completely healthy and I love myself. So now when I see couples and I see really healthy male, female, and I'm talking male, female here because I'm attracted to men. I'm not talking about same-sex partners. That's a whole nother, and I'm super happy for them, but that's not a reflection for me. I look at men and women as partners and co-parents. And when I see a healthy father, if I have an opportunity to talk with him, I thank him. I have thanked so many healthy dads, whether they're single dads or whether they are partnered dads. And I will say to them, I just have to commend you for being committed to your kids and being so awesome. The response that I get back from these healthy dads is, first of all, oh, you're welcome. Of course. I can't imagine not being with my kids, which is just an amazing response to me. And the second is many of them have said to me, are you a single parent? And I say to them, I am. Is he not involved? Nope. He abandoned. I'm so, and I mean, there have been, the responses from these men have been shock, anger. Like, where is he? Like I'm like the man in me wants to like find him and confront him. I've had that. I've had that from men that I've dated. Deep compassion, just like, how many kids do you have? 3. You know, the shock, the dismay. I've actually experienced one man that I talked with who cried and said, I just have to cry. That's so sad. And it's been just an amazing journey. It's like the pain has created this incredible opportunity to connect with men in a very healthy way, of like my experiences of being a single parent have been able to show men who are committed men who are healthier men, just a different perspective. And it's like that wave of, I even want to do better than what I'm doing now. I even want to be that much more of a healthy dad to my kids. I want to be that much more of a healthy partner to my woman. It's like it's created that.
That's really beautiful. I love that.
It's important. It's important that we see that we see a contrast. I mean, we're in the third dimension for that contrast.
It's funny that you say that, because I've had a similar experience during this season myself. My conflict has been primarily related to what is it that I want to do with my life, because I'm not really 100% sure, and I don't really know like what I should be doing, or I don't know like what my direction should be. And when I say should, I mean like I don't know what I want. Like the question is, what do I want in my life? What do I want for myself? Because it got to a point where I felt like I had all these different options, and I like wasn't 100% sure, and I was like, this is too much. And so I would have this physical manifestation of trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. Spraining my ankle is a result of trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. Sprinting from one thing to another, trying to get it all done in time. And so I had to really use that opportunity of just like forced slow down to really consider that and ask what I want, and what is it that I give importance to is really the big question. And I really found that I reconnected with my artistic self in a way that I had not been connected to before. And the answer became very, very clear to me. And the answer is just that I just want to make art. I love making art, and I just want to keep making art. And there was a part of me that thought for a while that maybe that wasn't like important enough, or maybe I should be like doing something different, or I should be serving in a different way. And I kind of realized that that's all bullshit. That's just like my ego talking down to me. Mm-hmm. And it was a big realization for me, because it kind of unlocked like this floodgate. And so recently I've been coming out of this sort of, it was this brief depressive state into now it's like all of this music is pouring out of me, and I'm loving spending my time just making this music, because for a while there, music had lost a lot of its meaning, because I was not sure yet again if I should be giving meaning to other things. Should I be concerned about the state of the world? Should I be trying to change it? Should I be trying to do something different in this kind of way? No, is the answer. The answer is no. The answer is always no, but the ego says, no, you've got to do something this, that, and this. But what it really leads to then is it leads to being spread too thin for me. And so when I realized that one of the big dams that had been blocking my creativity and my art that I had not realized is a desire to transcend the human experience into a place of peace. I had an egoic attachment to the yogic state that I didn't even realize existed. I had an egoic attachment to being in a state of nirvana, of bliss, of just existing in a place where I could then become nothing so that I could hopefully reach the next thing and serve in an even greater way. And I didn't realize that was an egoic attachment until I had this experience where I had to stay in bed for a while and just not move. And that experience really showed me that I have to feel, just like what you said, I have to be human and feel the contrast. And in experiencing that, I realized that that's why I create art. Is my art is an expression of all of this feeling, of all of the contrast. My art comes from being a human and having these experiences that I like or don't like, having opinions about things that I like or don't like, feeling wounded, and allowing myself to experience depression is a great gift. Allowing myself to be anxious is a great gift. It is the wonderful well from which all of this soul pours into feeling and form and then is manifested into songs and manifested into visual art. And there was a while there where I was rejecting that because I had an egoic attachment to the idea that my purpose was greater than that, which it is not, because there is no greater than. And that is what I didn't realize. And so in embracing the contrast in this season, I feel like I've found life again. And it has given me so much energy. I'm just filled with energy right now, which is really cool. I haven't been this energetic in a long time.
That's awesome. Well, a couple of points of what you were sharing. First of all, when you were born, you came into this life with wanting to be creative, voraciously creative, and being in inner conflict with that. You were born that way. When you were interacting socially in the outer world, I noticed the comparison, and we all do that. That's how we learn. We compare. We see the mirror reflection starting as newborns. You know, as a parent, you see your newborn and you'll do, or hi, and we get that reaction, and the newborn will reflect that, learning the facial expressions, learning all of the different ways to express itself. And you came in a very fixed way, not surprising. You've got dominance of fixed in your chart. You were very fixed. You were very fierce and very serious. And it took your father at 3 months in your photo shoot to finally get you to smile. You didn't smile for the first 3 months of your life. You were so stoic and fierce and sad and in conflict. And I watched this in your life. I watched you struggle with yourself, and I watched you compare yourself to others. And I watched you repress yourself when you were with others to see, is this something that I can share with others? This hesitance. Whereas, and I saw Mars have the same issue, but a little bit more, actually.
I agree.
Kyan didn't have that issue, though. Kyan was just squirreling himself, and I'm going to cry and be whiny around others, and then I'm going to be really super, oh, and look at this, and oh, look at that, and oh, that's really fun, and let me show you this, and oh, let's be really goofy. Kyan was not like that. But you and Mars were very much like that. You were hyper self-aware to the point of, I don't know if I feel comfortable sharing myself with others. And then as soon as we'd get home, or as soon as the friend would leave, if they were over at our place, and you guys would just bust out with, oh, this is the way I really am. Let me get out the Legos and Mars. Let me get out the paper action figures. And oh, let's sit down and read, and let's listen to music, and let's dance, and I got to express. And I would always encourage you both to be who you are, no matter who you were around. That was the way I was. And in some ways, that was the way your father was, in some ways. And I saw you struggle with this. And I've watched you struggle with just being authentically you. you're an artist. This is a typical artistic journey to doubt the creativity. And one of the main reasons why is because in the patriarchal oligarchy system that we are in, still where the almighty buck is worshipped over any sort of humanity, that we are not supported, especially in our first world country of the good old US of A, America, the brave, the home of the beautiful. We are not supported as creatives. We are not financially supported. We are not encouraged. We are not encouraged to express ourselves. We are encouraged to time punch the clock. We are encouraged to work, and pay our bills and make money. And there is no room for humanity and creativity and feeling and emoting in any of that. Don't think for yourself. Here, let me give you ads on social media. I'll think for you. Mm-hmm. And work as much as possible. And then guess what? Go over to that mall and spend all your money and put it back into us. That's what we're encouraged to do. We're not encouraged to be human. Something else that's been reflected to me to go on this thread.
Absolutely.
Is that I also see that we're in the way that we are encouraged to not be human. To be human is to be emotional. Don't emote. Instead, just breathe, observe. Meditation is not meant to sit in for long periods of time. Hate to break it to you, yogis and Buddhists. But it's not. Meditation is a reset. That's all it is. Meditation is fourth dimension, literally. It is fourth dimension. It is not a physical place. It is a frequency that the brain tunes into in order to stop the constant flow of thought from one thing that you're focused on all the time into creating a different point of focus. That's all it is. It's a reset. I don't need to meditate any longer than 20 minutes in a block in the morning. And then every once in a while, when I feel like I'm getting overly saturated and I'm losing my energy, I will need to stop, close my eyes, take a breath, and just like sit and be still and listen. And then when that is done, when I feel like I've neutralized, my body will literally let me know. I will feel an electric kick in. And it's like, all right, I'm ready to go back to it. That happens in the afternoon. Sometimes that has to happen a couple times. I won't need that any longer now than about 7 minutes of that. That's it. And I work at a job where I have the beauty where I can take a pause like that. It's one of the reasons why I work the system job that I do is I can take little pauses like that. And it's like, I'm in my car. I can lay back. Let me just breathe and feel this. Let the body just shut down. I'm listening. I can hear the chaos. Then the chaos fades. And then the body literally kicks in. And I suddenly have to open my eyes. And it's like, I'm ready to start. I also have to do that before I go to sleep. I have to just like observe the thoughts. I set the intention. I am pure consciousness is what I say. And it's like, okay. And I'm just observing. And then I just drift off into sleep. Meditation is not a space that we are designed to live in. So meditation is not about feeling. Meditation is about observing. And that's not being human. That's not even being in the body. We are designed to be in the body, to be emotional, and to feel everything. And we're meant to feel our emotions for about 20 seconds. You feel angry. I have to express that. That's healthy. It comes out. You can cough it out. In Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine, anger sits in the lungs and we cough it out. It's pitta. It's fire. We express it. And then you learn through that expression of anger. 20 seconds. And then you come back into feeling everything. Same thing with grief. Same thing with any emotion, joy, all of it. We're not meant to sit in joy all the time. How boring. We're not meant to sit in grief all the time. How boring. Depression is the dumbing down, the stuffing down of not feeling. So we're meant to be human. We're meant to emote. And to be artistic is to express that. And the money makers, they don't want that. Why would they want that? They can't make a profit off of that. That's why it's not supported. And that's why we're moving into this new earth and new humans. New humans are expressive humans. New humans are feeling humans. New humans are emoting humans. Because to be a human being and not a human doing, being a human being means to really love your emotions. You want to feel sadness? Accept sadness and sit in sadness. What are you going to learn from sadness? You have rage. Try sitting in rage. What does it do for you? I don't like how rage feels in my body. I have felt some serious rage in my life.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that one either.
It causes a lot of disruption in my body. I get rashes, hives, pimples. There's a lot of things that happen to me in rage. I don't like it, but I know that when it comes up, I have to express it. Like, I'm not one of those yogis who is not feeling anger. I just don't sit. Listen, it's coming up. That was interesting. I just don't sit in anger. So what happens for me when I see anger, case in point, a couple of weeks ago, and we're coming to the end of hunting season here in the Pacific Northwest, and I was driving on the highway going south, and somebody's Jeep was driving past me, and they had killed a deer. They'd killed a doe, slit open her belly, taken out the contents of her intestines, strapped her back up with a bungee, and literally bungeed her to the back of their Jeep. And there was blood dripping out of her, and you could see the slit. Yeah. And I gasped, and I was so sad, and then I felt rage. And instead of suppressing the rage, I expressed it. I started yelling at them. Now, I know this is what their practice is. This is what they believe in. But they're in my hologram suddenly, and it's not my belief, and it's not what works. It's not what flows. This is a living being that they murdered. In my world, that's what that is. And I had to express the anger for her, that she's been taken from her babies. She's been taken from her buck. She's been taken from her herd. That's wrong. In my world, that's wrong. They're murderers, and I had to express that. And then I worked through that, and it took me a while, and it took me a day to really work through that. And I went through waves of, I cried, and then I was mad, and I cried, and I was mad. That's being human. I have no interest in being sociopathic. There's nothing wrong with sociopaths. They have their place. It's not my world. I want to feel. I want to feel everything. Sociopathy in my world is, I'm so sensitive, I can't handle the feeling of my emotions. Therefore, I'm going to completely detach myself from that. And I'm going to step outside of everything in my world. And I'm going to go through the world without feeling anything. And even though it's going to come in because I'm having a human experience, I am going to prevent myself from feeling anything. I don't want to feel hurt. I don't want to feel pain. That isn't going to last. It doesn't last. And for sociopaths, that's a finite life. It's not a long life. It's not a good life. It's not a healthy life. I don't want that life. I am here to be human. And that's something that's really been also echoing back at me in my hologram a lot, is to be human is to really love and express the full spectrum of human emotions.
Thank you so much to everyone who listened to this week's episode of the podcast. Feel free to check us out on Instagram at One Long Conversation to get some updates on our future episodes, our future content. You can also follow us on Patreon and become a member. We have a lot of interesting and awesome perks and cool ways to connect with us and our community that we're forming there. So go over to Patreon at One Long Conversation, and you'll find us there. We also have these episodes going out on YouTube now. So if you go to YouTube, yet again, at One Long Conversation, you will find video versions of these episodes. So yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.